Hi everyone, welcome to Art Break Live. I'm Susie Wolf and I work in the education department at the Baltimore Museum of Art. And today we're going to take a look at some mosaics in our collection that come from the ancient city of Antioch in modern day Turkey. And as always, if you have questions, go ahead and type them below, and when we come to the live portion of the program, I'll see if I can answer them. So today we're going to do two things. I'm going to show you 4 mosaics in a collection that are called the Friendship Mosaics. And then I'm going to show you a way to make your own mosaic out of strips of paper or catalogs that will give you a beautiful range of colors rather than the colors that you would get if you used construction paper. So the first thing I want to do is to show you how a mosaic is made. It would be made of big blocks of colored marble or limestone that would be quarried and then cut into small cubes and placed in a bed of mortar, which is like cement, on the floors of homes and also public buildings in Antioch. And they would be placed, the different colored pieces would be placed sometimes in a geometric form like this, which is straight lines and kind of squares. Often that sort of shape is on a border in a mosaic, but not always. And then the center might have figures or animals or plants in the center. And if we think about tiles, think about maybe your bathroom floor or potentially your kitchen floor. If you put your hand on them or your foot on them, how do they feel? Warm or cool? Well, mostly they feel cool. And so they were a perfect material to use in Antioch for homes because it was so hot there during the summer that a cool stone floor would help keep people cool during the summer. Now, Antioch was a port city, just like Baltimore is, and lots of goods would come into Antioch from Africa and Europe and the rest of the Middle East into Turkey, and they would be taken off ships and then moved to the east, and usually on camel caravan, and then goods would come from Asia and then go out into other parts of the world. So because of this bustling trade business, there were lots of people of different races and religions and cultural beliefs living in Antioch, sort of, for the most part, in harmony. And so I want you to keep that in mind while we look at this series of friendship mosaics, and let's see how they relate to each other. So the first thing I want you to do is take a look at these 4 mosaics and figure out, how are they the same? What do they have in common with each other? Take a look. All right, so one thing you probably see is the ribbon border that you see around maybe the tops or the bottoms or the side of the mosaics. And let me say that these 4 pieces were at one point a complete floor in a hallway in Antioch. And the mosaic was so big that it was divided into parts and then sent to the museum. So if you're interested in the excavation of these mosaics or what became of Antioch, type that below. And when we get to the live portion, I can tell you a little bit more about that. So we have this gorgeous border that we see, and then what else do we see? Do you see the 2 animals that seem to be facing each other? And on the left side, you see a lion or a tiger or a leopard. And then on the right side, you see different animals, don't you? And when we think of these sets of animals, we think of the lion or the tiger or the leopard as a predator, and the animal across from it as prey. But do we see the predator attacking the prey? We don't, do we? They seem to be living in harmony. And in fact, if we look at this mosaic, we'll see a column in the center, and on it are the Greek letters that spell the word philia, which means friendship. So these are friendship mosaics. That's how they got their name. And if we think that these animals live in harmony together, right? That's very similar to the way Antioch wanted to live, with people of different religions and beliefs all living together in harmony. So I want you to keep that idea of friendship in mind. And I'm going to tell you about a way to make a mosaic. And I want you to think about, when you make yours later, how are you a good friend? In what ways do you show friendship to others? All right? And when we come to the live portion of our time together, I'll show you the mosaic that I made. So the first thing I did was to get a really bright catalog that I have. A magazine would work just as well. And I'm going to be using green in my mosaic. So I cut out all different strips of different values of green in them. And then I cut out small tiles, just like we saw in the Antioch Mosaics, that I can put together like this when I make my mosaic. And don't you see how beautiful these values of greens look together? All right, so when we get back together in just a moment, I'll show you my mosaic. So thanks for watching, and I'll be with you in a second. Hi, everyone. I hope you like the program, and I'm really excited for our discussion today. So before we get things started, I wanted to show you the mosaic that I made using little tesserae or squares of paper from a catalog. And so I am a big gardener, and I generally like to give vases of flowers to friends as a surprise, or if I meet somebody new, I'll give them a vase of flowers. So my mosaic I made with two flowers in the center. And what I like about using a catalog is, I don't know if you can see these beautiful values of red and then some pink in there. And even in these whites, I used a lot of different sort of whites, so it gives visual interest to it. And I liked the idea of a geometric border, some sort of border around it. So I made a border around my mosaic. So anyway, all right, this is the fun time. Time for your questions. Okay, Michael, you said you would like more history. How about if I tell you a little bit about when Antioch was founded, and then sort of what sort of happened at the end of it? It was found by a Greek general around let's say 350 BCE, and thrived for almost, I guess, 800 years. And then there were a series of events, and let me get my dates here. There were a series of events that happened. And in 525, there was a massive fire in Antioch that killed about 120,000 people. And it was followed 2 years later by 2 earthquakes. And then the bubonic plague hit Antioch in 542. And for the most part, those who were still healthy left the city of Antioch. And then it was finally sacked in 638. So at that point, all of these beautiful buildings were in decay and were eventually, plowed over. And so the modern city of Antioch was built. So that is what happened there. Why don't I tell you a little bit about the dig? So from 1932 to about 1939, the excavation was documented by photographs, and all the photos are in the archives at Princeton. And in this first photograph, we see photographer Fadil Saba and his team around a lift set up over a mosaic. And Fadil is sitting out on the edge taking a documentary photo. The mosaic was then covered with a fabric that was that had glue on it to keep all the tiles in place. And then slowly, if you can see that part where it's dug out there in the bottom left of the screen, a hole like that would be dug, and little by little, as part was excavated away, wooden poles would be moved in. Underneath, there would be a wooden board put down on top of the mosaic. These poles would go in, and finally it would be lifted up. And then it would be flipped over. After the mosaic was flipped, the old mortar would be dug out, and then new concrete slab would be put in with some chicken wire to reinforce it, and allowed to dry. Once this concrete was dried, it would be put upright. The mosaic would be put upright, and this fabric that had been glued on would be taken away, and that mosaic would be cleaned to get off minerals and things that had dirt and minerals that had accumulated over time. Sort of general cleaning there, and then would be boxed up essentially within wood and various materials around it to keep it from shifting. And then it came to the BMA, and then was hung on the walls in Antioch Court, and we have 28 mosaic fragments from there. All right. What else? Do you have any other questions? What's amazing to hear, and just so that everyone understands, was that these colored blocks were not dyed in any way. So if you wanted to use a pink, you would need to quarry pink stone and have that made into cubes. The same with brown, the same with a very, very dark color. So it was such hard work and took such a long time because you need to find those colored stones in order to do it. All right. Anything else? Sherry, how are you? I'm so glad the mosaics are your favorite. They're my favorite too. Why don't I tell you about how they're hung at the museum and sort of the weight and things like that, sort of a behind the scenes thing. The friendship mosaics that we have weigh about 2,500 pounds. Let me just check on that. About 2,500 pounds each, say 2,700 pounds, which is the weight of a car. So each of them weighs a car weight. And so they have big bolts on them. I don't know how the bolts were put on, but big bolts in them that go through the limestone facade of the limestone fronting of Antioch Court into the foundation. And then on the most heavy ones underneath, there is almost a little shelf that carries some weight carries weight as well. And so we're guessing, based on one of the very large mosaics, that the mosaic in front of us, so this mosaic probably has about 20,000 tesserae, small colored cubes in it. Oh, Dave, cool. That's fantastic. Okay, so the packing crew is joining from the BMA. If you guys have anything to add, please do. And let me say hello to Mr. Howard's class. Mr. Howard's class is, Mr. Howard's history class is joining us. So if you have any questions, go ahead and type them in. Michael, the question from whom? When did they? So we excavated them. We were part of the 4-team excavation group that dug and excavated and brought the BMA mosaics to the States. All right, we have time for 1 or 2 more questions. Let's see if there's anything I want to tell you. There's so much good things. Okay, thank you. Thank you. All right, so part of our job as a museum is to take care of things in our collection. And the people that take care of those things are called conservators. And they are very particularly trained. So we have conservators in painting, or the conservator who works with frames, or objects conservator. In this case, this is a woman named Nicole who is working on the conservation of a of one of the mosaics. And what you see here, can we get that slide completely across the screen? If you can, is that she is digging out some old mortar. It's a mosaic of birds with feathers around their necks, and she's digging out some old mortar and doing a cleaning. And generally what they'll do is clean both the tesserae and the mortar around them with a solvent, and it's almost put on something that looks like a Q-tip, and each one is individually cleaned. It's amazing to see. Yeah, so it's very detailed work, and very important for the work that museums do, keeping objects safe and clean in the collection. Sarah asked, how did the BMA lay claim to digging them? Well, we knew everybody, historians know that there was an ancient city there. And so this 4-team group, the 4 institutions asked for permission from the Syrian government, which Antioch used to be a part of before it was annexed to Turkey. And they received permission. And so that was done from about 1932 to 39, and then ended because of the threat of the war. Okay, anything else? Okay, Layla would like to know how they're being cleaned right now. Well, nothing is happening, unfortunately, right now, because the museum is closed and no one can really be in there. So the conservators can't be in there. But I'm guessing, I work in a different department. I'm in education department, but I'm guessing when we all get back to work, which we hope we do soon, the conservators will continue working on and cleaning the mosaics. And Sarah and anyone else who is joining us, some of my colleagues just gave you more information, a website on the team excavation. Were they allowed to keep everything they uncovered? No. The Syrian government allowed the team to take about 100 mosaics of the 300 that they uncovered. Does Layla have any more questions, Dave? All right. So if that's all that we have, I will see you again in 2 weeks on Thursday, June 11th at 2 o'clock for a great program on the exhibition Adorned, African Women and the Art of Identity. So we'll see you all back here in 2 weeks. And if you make a mosaic, please hashtag it with ArtBMA from home. There it is at the bottom of the screen. So I will get a chance to see it. All right. Thank you for joining me.